Victoria.
And I'm Diana, and we're with the Human Community.
Today we're honored to welcome Tiffany Malone, a multidimensional healer and spiritual guide whose path began with a deep sensitivity to the unseen and the whispers of the natural world.
Tiffany is an Akashic Record reader, Kundalini energy facilitator, and multidimensional healer. Through her work, she helps others remember their soul's truth and reconnect their place in the greater tapestry of life. Her devotion is not about fixing others, but guiding them back to remembrance, freedom, and connection.
We're so grateful to have her here today to explore the mysteries of the Akashic Records and the transformative power of light language. We're so excited to talk to Tiffany today. I actually had her do my Akashic Record reading, I think like 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then Diana, you had yours with her just a few days ago.
Right. Yes, and the reading was very impactful to me. I can't wait to share it with everybody.
It'll be great, a great conversation.
Yeah, let's do it.
Welcome, Tiffany. We are so happy to have you here with us today.
Hi, Tiffany.
Hi, thanks. It's great to be here. I've really been looking forward to it.
Yeah. So I think the last time I saw you was when you were doing my Akashic reading, which was such a beautiful, profound experience for me. So I met you in our biofield tuning class. We're going to be interviewing Jillian from Biofield, great. Yes, from Biofield Tuning, and her husband Matt. So we're super excited about that. I just thought you would want to know because she was one of your teachers, just like mine. So
absolutely. And that was such an amazing time going through that course. I learned so much, and it opened up so much.
It did. It really did. And so it was at that class that you and I were messaging each other, that you had mentioned that you did Akashic readings. And I've always been so curious about it. So I had set up a session with you afterwards, a couple weeks later, I think. And it was such an amazing experience for me. And I've sent a lot of my friends to you and my family. I sent Diana to you. And I know she had an amazing experience. In a minute, I'll give her a chance to talk about that. But in that session, I heard you say that oftentimes people who have sessions with you, they understand everything, but there are seeds that just stay there until they're ready to receive it. And so because we were interviewing you for the podcast, I went back to my reading with you since it was recorded, which is an amazing thing that you do that. And I went back and it's even more profound for me because I shared mine with Diana, so she was able to see it. And she said, oh my gosh, it explains so much. Anyways, I just want to let all the listeners know that the sessions are incredible because, of course, they're your Akashic Records, but they get deeper and deeper as life goes on, if that makes sense. So anyways, I just wanted to share that with you. It was just incredible.
Thanks for sharing it because I really feel like that's such an important part of it. It's almost as important, if not more so, than the original reading in the moment, because I've had quite a few clients who will say that. And I remember one client who said this was all so new to her. She somehow ended up finding me and was drawn to Akashic readings. And she told me like a year later after her second reading that after the first one, she was like, I didn't understand any of it. And then like 6 months later, she listened to it or watched it again and it all landed. And she was like, oh my gosh. And then she came for the second one and she's had about 4 readings over the last space of time. Yeah. But it's really valuable. And I'm not quite sure why, to be honest. I really think, of course, on the physical level, we can't absorb all the information in the moment because there's so much going on and we're receiving so much. But also, I think there's something energetically that goes on when you go back into that space and when someone has kind of evolved from when they had the original reading. So
that is exactly what happened. And I'm so grateful because I hadn't reviewed it in a while. And when I went to go listen to it a couple weeks ago, it brought tears again, like all over, just like the first time I watched it. But anyways, that it was just an incredible experience, and I'm grateful. So thank you for that.
That's wonderful to hear.
Diana, did you want to share your experience?
So much to share, but I'll keep it contained because I want to talk about other stuff. But
Yes.
the reading that I had with you, Tiffany, it just explained so much and validated a lot of what I had been feeling, which led me to believe that I was receiving more information and aligning with certain beliefs just unknowingly where those messages were coming from and my guidance. And so when we talked about the different things at the readings, it's like, that settles, that makes a lot of sense. And it gave me a lot to think about, a lot to work on. And it's all about, like what we talked about, balancing the masculine and feminine and all that stuff. So it was really great. And I've listened to it 3 times already. And we just had that on, Wednesday? So I will continue to listen to it. And I'm sure that I'll be back for more, which brings me a question. If I were, or me or anybody else goes back in 6 months or a year, how do the records change? Is it just based on choices that the person has made? Does that change the trajectory? Or is there a basic plan that your soul plan that's basically this way, but if I'm making choices, do I ever deviate? Well, how different will the records be?
It's a really good question. And I've actually never really thought about that with clients that continue to come back, because every reading is so different. And every reading is literally like guided by the client's higher self. So I kind of feel like I'm just a tool, like a body that's delivering that. So whatever the client is experiencing in their lifetime, in those moments, if that's what they are wanting to find information about or get messages about, that can come through. But what I've found quite often is that people seem to have a certain path, and I see things very visually, so I'm just going to kind of describe it as it's shown. But like there's an end point, and there's all these different roads you can take to get to that end point. But certain things are destined. Certain things are aligned before your soul entered this body. So those specific things are destined, and it doesn't really matter how you get there, or sometimes even how long it takes, because sometimes if you choose one road, it can take a little bit longer time-wise. But certain things are going to occur, or for example, if there's certain people that you have a soul contract to meet, you will meet them. I remember I did an Akashic relationship reading for 2 women who were friends. I love doing Akashic relationship readings because it's 2 people that come together, family members, friends, spouses, it doesn't, whatever. And we do a reading together at the same time. And I just saw so clearly that, because they were like, oh, if we hadn't been in this place or that place, and we wouldn't have met then or met again. And it was just so clear, well, then you would have met at a different place. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like a destined thing. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly, but every reading is so different. And it hasn't been like somebody comes for multiple readings and it feels like it's flowing from the last one. It feels to me like clients return for another Akashic reading for guidance, especially if they've had one already. And what they're receiving is higher self guidance. So whatever their higher self wants to reveal too, because some people come for a reading for something specific and it ends up being about something totally different. And we can answer that, or they can receive about that question or that dilemma, but then something else completely different comes in, which is why they were actually there.
Here on this podcast on the human community, our goal is to empower people. And we try to bring guests on that empower individuals that are lost in life and have forgotten their divinity. And I think what is so beautiful about the work that you do is that it's all about empowering people and reminding them of what they already know, but they have forgotten. And that's how the session with you for me went, was that I already knew these things about me, but it was like validation. And I didn't really even know you that well, right? We had just met in the class, and I didn't tell you anything about me, right? So for those who are listening, like we were like brand new acquaintances.
It wasn't in person too.
Right. And then and you did it a little bit different than how you do it now, because it was 4 years ago. You did the recording by yourself without me there, and then you shared the video with me. And it was so spot on with who I am. Like even Diana, when she saw it, you saw it like 30 days ago, I think I sent it to you to watch. She was like, oh my gosh, this explains so much. Like, this is so you. So it's very profound work, and I'm blown away at how accurate it is.
If I can expand on that, one thing, Tiffany, that I've been thinking a lot about when we talked about my guide who has been with me since birth and how he's helping me navigate my energies, it really made me step back and say, there is way more to life than going to work and dealing with the person at the grocery store. It really makes me stop and think. Everything that I say, every action that I do since that reading, I'm really thinking about and realizing what's more important and what I should even bother reacting to or whatever. And I'm working on staying more inside my heart and centering myself. So with people that get your readings, I think that they walk away with a bigger picture of who they are and what they're capable of. And it's not this little petty stuff that we deal with on a daily basis. This is just the show.
The real stuff, the authentic.
Yeah. And all these things that happen to us is like the car that takes us on our path, you know, the experiences. So anyway, that's what I love about your work, is that it will remind people that they're more than just all this.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's truly important. That's the empowering part of it. And I understand exactly how you feel, because I have received that also. And so I know what you're talking about, and I know how expansive that feels.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. I want to hear all about how your journey into the spiritual realms began for you.
Absolutely. Well, like probably most people who are in this space, I was always very empathic, as a child. Didn't realize what all of that was until I was an adult. And during my teen years, I did have an experience, which is really hard to explain, but it was an experience of realizing that I wasn't just me. It was kind of crazy. I remember I was sitting on my bed one day in high school, and I had just gotten back from school or something, just sitting there. I was about to start my homework or whatever. And I kept just feeling and seeing the vastness of the universe. I would see the planets, and then I would see how vast it was, and I would feel how vast it was. And I think something was being presented to me at that time, but I don't think I was ready for it. And that's where, when I'm talking about, there's a point where something happens, and it depends on the path you take. So I had that experience, and I always remembered it. But I was a teenager, and I was living my life, and I was choosing, all of that stuff. And then when I was in my late 20s, I've always been very, very bonded to animals and Diana, I know, feels the same way. And I started, I wish I could remember the name. There was a woman I came across who was an animal communicator. And I read her book, and she communicated with this whale called Granny. And I started playing around with it. I would just close my eyes and just pretend I was with Granny. And all of a sudden, all of this stuff started coming through. And I was there and I was with her, and she was taking me on this journey in the ocean. And I think a lot of it was just opening myself up to it. You know, getting the ego out of the way, getting the blocks out of the way. I never said, oh, this is just my imagination, because it felt so real. And so it opened me up to the animal communication world, and I started communicating with my own pets, because I've always had pets. And then it just kind of, in about 2018, I had a bit of a dark night of the soul experience in my life. And I really went within. And that's when, like, I really got cracked open to everything. And I was ready for it. I was open to it. And I was drawn to the Akashic Records. And I had a reading, fortunately, by this amazing woman who was the perfect person for me to come across for my first Akashic reading. And just kind of like you said, after the reading, I really dropped into the experience of, I'm not just me. And all of this stuff that's going on in my life is really just stuff. And I realized that I was a multidimensional being, meaning I'm not just Tiffany in this body. I am also many other things, and have been many other things. And that can kind of take, for some people, maybe a little bit of playing around with to kind of get to that point. But that was the game shifter for me. And that just opened up so much. And after that, I would say that probably the most important thing, and this is for anybody, is to trust and believe whatever you're being shown, whatever you see, whatever you feel or sense. Don't doubt that and bring in like the ego or society saying you're imagining this, because the more you open up to it and the more you actually believe, it's almost like believe in magic. If you believe in magic, you're going to witness it, and then it just expands and expands and expands, and that's basically what's happened.
I love what you're saying. The experience that you had with Granny, to me, sounds very much like a shamanic journey.
I think anybody can do that if they can suspend their disbelief. Yeah. If they can just truly just drop into it and go with it and believe it. I think that's all it is. I think we all are able to do that.
Yeah.
We're so programmed by society, our five senses, and that's all there is. And when you can really drop in and just be like, I'm going to go with this, and I believe it and I trust it. Yeah. I think that's the key.
And just ignoring everybody else while you're doing that. Well, I read on, I believe it was your website, when you said that you were receiving messages from rocks.
Mm-hmm. I have my rock here in my hand.
Oh, can you talk about that? I'm very, very curious. And did you tell anybody about that, or how did that whole thing happen?
Well, honestly, my entire life, I've always felt more connected to animals and rocks and minerals and, you know, all of those things. I've kind of had a hard time with humans, which is okay. But I've always just felt that connection. They helped me, animals and rocks and nature, honestly, in general, always helped me to come to that place of stillness. And when you're in that place of stillness, that's when you receive. And they always assisted me. For example, like when I realized that I was having this connection with a tree or with a rock, and I would just go into a place of stillness and just be in this place of receiving, and I would find that there was communication there. However that would be, whether it be something I just sensed or felt, or whether it be something visual, it comes in different ways. And that kind of opened me up too, because I just trusted it so much. Like, there was no doubt in my mind that what I was receiving was a message from this rock. Some people might look at me and say, this woman's gone crazy. And that's okay. If they think that or say that, that's totally fine. But I know the connection, and I believe it, and I trust it. And that's all that really matters to me and my soul's growth and what I'm experiencing. And I think being, again, in that place and that space of trusting and believing, and probably there is a part of, I think it was Diana that said, one of you said, not really focusing on other people's comments or possible judgments, because that doesn't really matter. And when you stop focusing on that or letting that kind of bother you, then that really goes quiet. Like, I don't hear that from anybody. It's almost like I don't even receive that kind of information anymore. It's like I'm surrounded by people who are in this space and who do believe and who want to believe more, because none of that is in my field anymore of negativity and judgment. And I think it's honestly just because that doesn't mean anything to me. So it's kind of disappeared, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. It's where you choose to focus, put your right. energy into. It's and anybody can do that on a daily basis. When you have an encounter, are you going to engage? Are you going to put your energy towards that? Or are you just going to say, okay, whatever, and then just focus on your belief system that you have? Yeah. Because
really that's just their perceived judgment. That's their world. And that's okay for other people to be like that, you know? And I think when you come to that place of, well, that's okay, then it's so liberating.
I think, a lot, not everyone, but I think a lot of children, me and Tiffany, from what you're saying, and I know Diana, have those experiences when we're younger as children, the connections to spirit, the spirits in nature, the animals and the trees. I have vivid memories of climbing trees, and truly the tree in my front yard was my best friend. Every day after school, I'd climb it. I think all empaths probably have those types of childhoods, right? But then life happens, and you recognize as you get older that people are judging you, and people are saying that magic can't happen. It's now being called your imagination. You're just imagining things. And I think really children are so open because their minds have not been polluted yet, and they're more open to seeing those types of things and feeling them. But then we go down these paths, and the world starts putting stuff on us, and we either conform and ignore the messages from spirit, the messages from nature, from animals, or we go ahead and dive in and just keep on believing. And
so I'd like to dive into the actual Akashic Records, how that is perceived by people. How would you describe the Akashic Records?
So my description, I think, is a little bit different than if somebody was, for example, going to Google it, because I did the same thing. When the Akashic Records came across my field, and I was like, ooh, what is this? It really interested me. It really resonated. And so I kind of did a deep dive. But when I started first, reading about it, it was always portrayed as something that was, kind of a supercomputer or a library in the universe or something that I always felt like I had to go to it. Like it was something out there that I needed to reach for. And when I started doing readings, I realized after a certain amount of time that it's all right here. It's just a frequency that's here all the time that you just have to tune into. And so it's not something that's outside of self that we have to reach for. And I think everybody has the capacity to access their own Akashic records. I mean, we're sovereign beings. Of course we have that right. But I do think also, in saying that, I think there are certain people, certain souls who have a history of somehow being involved with the Akashic records, like a soul history. I think a lot of people who are drawn to it naturally have past lives where they have either off or on planet worked within the Akashic records. But I do believe that everybody can have access to it. So it's a frequency that can be tuned into that basically contains the history of a person's entire soul's journey. So there's a lot of information there, and a lot to be accessed. And you could never really access it all in a lifetime, because it's your soul. Every experience, every thought, everything is contained within that vibration.
Wow.
That's
And so when somebody has a reading, can they just hone in on a specific time period or specific, what galaxy did I come from, and explore that galaxy or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if with my readings, a lot of clients come with specific questions that will be asked, and whatever comes through, whatever guidance comes through or messages. If a question is in particular, but like what are some of my past lives, or what planets have I had a soul contract with? I mean, it can go specifically into that. I do find that I love to have time for flow in the readings, though, because it always seems like, and I know these questions are important to the client and they should be addressed, because I had questions when I had my first reading. But I do believe there's higher purpose in the readings, and other things are meant to come through for the client in that moment, in that hour reading, that are very important for that time in their life, specifically for their soul path. So it's open to all questions and flow that's meant to come through from the client's higher self.
when you're doing a session, how do you see that person's records? And the reason why I'm asking is I had an experience, and I'm curious now. Do you actually see a person's book, or do you see the person, or do you actually see a library with books?
That's a good question. And, that's where I think I've had readings done by different people, and every one, it's done differently. And I love that, because everyone receives in different ways. I don't really know how everybody else sees or feels it. I can only go by me personally. It's definitely not a book or anything that's like that. In fact, it's almost even like right now, I'm feeling called to share that if people can remove images like that from the picture, because that's almost placed as an image. If it's hard to understand how it's received, which is understandable why we need an image to kind of comprehend something, but it feels like that is of the past, and humanity is evolving, and we need different relations to the Akashic Records than a book or a library. So for me personally, when I'm in somebody's Akashic Records, it varies. A lot of times there are images that come through, and then I share the images. I share what I'm seeing. But a lot of it also is just feeling and knowing and kind of hearing words, just like that totality of his soul. Sometimes there's scenes that come through that's like, I wouldn't talk like that. And I love it when that happens, because it's more confirmation of, just being open to how it comes through. So it comes through a lot of different ways for me. And when I'm in somebody's Akashic Records, we're in that container, we're in that space that I know is a sacred, safe space for the client and for myself. So 100% of everything that comes through is meant to be in that space and meant to be shared. And I love having that and knowing that, because that frees me from the egoic mind. Because sometimes things can come in, I can feel my ego come in. I'm like, oh, should I share that with a client? Or, and sometimes I don't, and it will come through again. And I'm like, okay, I'm definitely meant to share this. But when you're in that space of trust, that you're just the vessel sharing the information that's coming through from their higher self, their guides, their angels, whatever that is, then it's a safe space. And it's might sound kind of corny, but it's such a sacred safe space that there's so much love, like unconditional love in that space, that I feel like that's some of what is shared also. And I think that's part of loving ourselves more deeply, as in, I'm not just Tiffany in this body, I'm so much more. And when you start feeling into that, and you start loving yourself as the multidimensional being that you are, that opens up so much. I think so much of humanity's sole purpose is to love yourself. So simple. Really,
so many people don't.
Yeah, and it's really sad. But that's the way society is kind of set up, and that's the journey we chose to be on, all of us.
So you describe yourself as a bridge between realms. How does that show up specifically in your Akashic Records work?
I describe it that way because, kind of like what I was just talking about, I feel like when I'm in that space, I'm literally a human body that is relaying messages, guidance, and healing to the client. So it's coming from, I'm just going to say up here, all around, but through me to the client. So that's why it's like, I feel like a bridge. It's something that gets that information or that guidance to the client in a physical way that they can hear and understand and sit with and all of that.
When you were talking earlier, the vision that I kept seeing was these fields overlapping. And when you talk about that sacred space that you and your client are in, I was shown this overlapping of fields, and it's where that overlapping is that you almost become that other person. And we're reminded that we are all connected and we are one. Is that how you see it?
I love how, like, you have this, like, you received the same thing and I receive it in a different way, but it's absolutely the same thing. So the overlapping and what you saw is the kind of that overlapping space.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what I was explaining to Diana the other day after her reading. I feel it. And what it feels like to me is that I love this person, this soul that's in front of me so much, like literally unconditional love. I can feel into that. And it's a really strange feeling because it's somebody I've met for the first time.
Yeah.
Know them before, probably will never see them again. And it's like this soul connection. And so to me, that overlap, that merging, that point right there, I think I'm feeling as that love, which is, we are all one, so yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And I wish, sometimes it's like my greatest wish is I just wish I could take that feeling and that love and just like give it to everybody.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah.
And I don't even have it all the time. I go about my 3D day
Sure.
but that's what I love about connecting with people in this way, because it brings us into this space of relating on a different frequency than just the 3D.
And there's something so beautiful about someone, almost, I don't want to say stranger, but, at the time when you did my reading, we were just quick acquaintances, of someone looking in and actually seeing you and validating. And in my session with you, you actually started crying because you felt so much love. And that, for me, was emotional because it was so genuine, and it brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. But you saw me for who I really, like, the essence of me, and it It was part of the reason why it was such a profound experience, because you knew me without even knowing me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Toria, you were willing to allow that connection,
Yeah.
just to be vulnerable and just lay it all out.
Yeah.
There's a
and
lot
there
of
was
trust
this
there.
trust. There was a lot of trust there. I just knew that I could trust her with my essence.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm grateful for that, because there is a lot of vulnerability being in that place. Opening yourself up to somebody who is able to access that part of ourselves that we don't even know is there. But Tori, I want to thank you for just mentioning that about me crying, because and I'm going to have to sit with this now, because I do get emotional in a lot of readings, because there's that profound connection, and like I can feel what the clients for their soul and all of it. And I have actually recently really stopped myself from becoming emotional, because I feel like it's unprofessional. Like I feel like it's taking away from, some people might not react in that way to me being emotional, but you saying that, I kind of feel like right now I'm receiving that it's kind of person to person.
Yeah.
There's no general rule to it. I think that maybe I'll be guided in each moment if I feel emotional, whether it should be shared or whether it shouldn't. But just on a personal level, I wanted to say thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Well, and it's very genuine. It was very, I mean, the things that you were saying during the session, there's no other way you would have known. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
everything you said was so true about me. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's, whew, okay. Is there a common theme or message you've noticed people receive when you read their records?
You know, surface level, I would say there's no common theme. Like if I think about people's readings are so different, some might be about really 3D things in their lives, making choices about moving or not moving. Some might be more like past lives and off planet. And so surface level, I would say no. But I mean, definitely underneath all of that, like the whole vibration of a reading is to understand the soul better. Not just the soul as Toria or Diana, but understand that there's so much more. And I think that's kind of what weaves through all of the readings. And in doing that, it opens something up.
That makes sense, because a lot of people just bypass that. And when they do inner work, well, let me understand Diana. What makes Diana tick? But like you said, there's so much more that if anybody, when they get a reading from you, it starts to open up that possibility of it's just not me. I mean, I'm on this planet, I'm on that planet. I've got this whole team of guides who are helping me, guide me, prompt me, nudge me, whisper in my ear, show me the 333 or whatever. But I can see the almost like the strong, not urgency, but the drive for the spiritual, and our guides and other entities to get us to wake up to. It isn't about your car. It isn't about your status. It's so much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I am dying to hear all about your pilgrimage to Egypt. I saw your pictures on Facebook, and I just could not wait to hear all about this. So I'm going to probably mispronounce this. Is it Sekhmet? Lioness goddess, protector of truth and balance. You went to Egypt and you were in her presence. Could you tell us about that journey and how that transformed your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So this whole Egypt thing, I mean, was so crazy. I grew up in Europe. I lived in the UK for 28 years, and I traveled. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel. Always wanted to go to Egypt, never went. And then within the last few years, it was really coming up to go to Egypt. But I knew that I wanted to go with like the right group, the right facilitator. Like I wanted to do it within that container space. And so things would come up and I'd be like, oh, I think this is the person I'm meant to go with. And one in particular, you had to upload a video, like a little interview about why you wanted to go. And every time I tried to record it, like 7 times, it would not record. So I was finally like, I'm not meant to go with this person, obviously. There's nothing more I can do. And then it ended up that a friend who I had met, she lives in Bali, and we started doing trade Kundalini sessions on each other and formed this beautiful bond just over Zoom. I had never met her in person, but every week we would get together and do these trade sessions. And she had done one trip to Egypt with, I think there were three or four women in total, and she was going to do another trip. And I kept feeling into like, is this the trip I'm meant to go on? And it's so funny because the moment that I actually received the yes was it was going to depart on my birthday. And I have 2 daughters who are now 21 and 18. And I remember the first thing I thought was, I can't go because that's my birthday and I can't leave my girls. And all of a sudden, just like a drop-in boom, but it's my birthday and it's time for me. Like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I need to do on my birthday. And that's like what it took. And I was like, okay, I think this is the trip. And it was amazing because we did have private access to quite a few places, which you can get, you know, in these group trips like that. It was a pilgrimage. So it was, I think, 8 women in total. None of us had ever met before. But we did ceremony in different places. So there was a spiritual purpose to the trip. And there was so much that occurred, you know, between us as a group. Of course, we very quickly realized we had had many experiences in ancient Egypt together. And but Sekhmet in particular, I didn't do any research about where we were going, and I was drawn to Egypt, but I didn't know like who Sekhmet, like what she was known for, or Isis, or any of them, to be honest. But Sekhmet was quite a profound experience because we had private access to her statue. So it was like a concrete statue. So with that private access, we were actually able to walk up and touch the statue. And so each of us were taking turns and going up and touching the statue. And so then it was my turn, and I wasn't really expecting, I didn't really know much about Sekhmet. So I walked up, and she had these long stone feet. And so I remember I was barefoot, stepped on her feet and placed my hands wherever I felt my hands needed to be placed. And I just received so much in that moment. And she was very cosmic. It was a very galactic experience, like all of her wisdom and information. And I'm very connected to the galactic side of things, many things off planet. And I immediately felt that. And I had this whole experience that I can only say is like a remembrance. You know, with so many of these things, it's like we're just remembering. And so I had that, and we had a certain amount of time. So then I had to, you know, remove myself. But what was kind of crazy is afterwards, we all went outside. We were kind of in this courtyard area, and all the women were standing around talking. And one of the guards had closed the iron gate to Sekhmet's statue. And I remember I walked back over to it and I just stood at the gate, and I was thinking, I wish I could just have one more moment with Sekhmet. And the guard walked over to me and asked me if I wanted to go back in. And I was like, yes, please. And so he opened the door, and there was one of the women who all of a sudden I heard, take Rita with you. So I called over to Rita and I said, Rita, come with me. And everybody laughed afterwards because they said I was so forceful. I'm not a very forceful person. And they were like, it wasn't even like it was me, but it was very urgent that Rita came with me. And we went back in and we stood together in front of Sekhmet, and we both had this experience together, which we've talked about afterwards. And so it was quite profound because I do believe that statue is a living statue. I don't know if either of you heard about a living statue. I had not until after I returned from Egypt. And I was reading something about that statue, and somebody called it a living statue, which is like a statue that actually holds the energy of that being, that soul. And that's exactly what it felt like. It felt like I was standing and touching not just a concrete statue. It was a living statue. That energy was present and it was there. But it changed my life because Sekhmet has this fire within her. And I returned home, and I did have a quite profound dark night of the soul when I returned. Like I was changing, I was evolving, and that involved this dark night of the soul. And that's one thing about being grateful when we're going through these really hard moments and realizing this is a dark night, knowing that I'm going to come out more evolved and, you know, stronger. And so I felt like I was shedding a lot of the old identity when I returned, and I was not in control of it whatsoever. It felt like it was happening to me, but I trusted it fully and completely. And Sekhmet was very present and really helped me to see very clearly, especially one particular relationship that was not serving me whatsoever. And it was like I saw it as a different person. And so that relationship ended, and my life expanded greatly after that. And so there's kind of that divine feminine bonding, kind of guiding fire in the belly of Sekhmet. I feel like Sekhmet is also a version of Kali. And Kali and Sekhmet feel like the same energy to me. So the Kali is like the Hindu goddess. She's the one that cuts off the heads, and you know, she's all fiery too. But it brought in some life changes, and it brought in a fire that I didn't have. And still now, I don't feel her as present, but whenever I feel into her, think of her, and whenever I ask for her guidance, she's right here, and I'm able to access it. So, yeah, it was
Wow.
a profound
Yeah.
experience.
What an
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
Do you have plans to go back?
Not right now. I truly feel like right now, for the foreseeable future, that's not part of my path. And some of the women are returning. She's doing another trip, a little promo for her. She's doing another trip in January of 2026, and highly recommend it for any female who feels called to it. But it's so funny because we had this one experience, all of us together as a group, and there was a lot of feminine rising energy that was occurring with us, these females being there as a group. Something about clearing some things, and a lot of patriarchy came up that I feel like we were helping to clear and to clarify where the divine feminine stood many millennia ago and is going to be again as part of the collective evolving. And we had this one experience, and it was so exhausting. I was so exhausted afterwards, and everybody else was still kind of walking around and taking some pictures, and I just needed to walk out and feel the sunlight. I felt like a battery that was completely drained because of everything we had just gone through and experienced. And so I remember walking up to the guide, who we stayed close to a lot of the times because we were a group, and I said to him, and it didn't feel like me that was saying this, it just came out. And I said to him, my work is done. I need to go sit in the sun. And he just kind of looked at me and said, okay. And I walked outside. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I kind of feel like that about Egypt right now. I feel like whatever I was called to be there for, to receive, to remember, to give, whatever that whole purpose was, I feel at this time is complete.
Something that I would really love to ask you about the light language. So during our session, light language came in, and for those who don't know what light language is, could you explain it first of all? And how does it come through you? You have hand movements, and what is it all about?
So light language, from my experience and my understanding from receiving it and sharing it, it's a channeled, multidimensional form of communication that bypasses the egoic mind so that it can go straight to the body, the energy field, wherever it's meant to go to in the person. And it's profoundly healing. And it can come through in many ways. I receive it through spoken light language, which sounds like a different language. It sounds like you're hearing a foreign language that you don't understand. Also through hand movement for me, and also through writing. So just like images that come through, kind of like maybe would be more like codes. They look more like codes. But light language for me started because it was on social media. So there are some good things about social media. This being one, is I started seeing some videos of people speaking light language. And one in particular, every time a video would come up and she would be speaking and I'd be looking at it, not understanding a word she was saying, but I would start nodding, like I was agreeing. And I remember being very aware of that, like, why am I nodding when I have no idea what this woman is talking about? It just felt like my body was saying, yes, I agree, or yes, I understand, to whatever that was. And that really opened something up in me, and it piqued this interest of what this light language is. And because I was intentionally open to it, it was a big step for me, because I decided, I felt like how powerful it was. So I wanted to be able to utilize that. And originally it was for myself, for my own healing. Just like with Akashic readings, I started wanting to learn Akashic readings to read for myself. And then it just kind of evolved. But it was the same with light language. I was like, I really want to experience this for myself. I want to be able to speak this to me. And so I remember sitting in front of a mirror one day and I was like, okay, I'm just going to be in this quiet space. And whatever starts coming through, I'm just going to start saying it. I don't know why I had to do it in front of a mirror, but I just started babbling all this stuff. And, all the ego stuff came in, like, this is stupid. I don't know what I'm saying. And it sounds crazy and blah, blah, blah. And I was really trying to be courageous with it because I felt that it was a really powerful healing tool. And so I started doing it more on myself. And I would actually feel Kundalini energy if I started doing the hand movements. And it's really just in a state of receiving, being in a space where you are in a space of full protection. So you can say something like, I am divinely protected in this space, and only the highest and purest forms of like source energy can come through, so that you're in this sacred safe space. And I would just start, whatever I felt wanted to come through, I would sit there and close my eyes and it would come through. And I started having these Kundalini experiences. I started having some heart opening experiences, and this was all for self. So at that point, I felt called to share it. And I started out with just hand movement with music in videos because I felt my throat chakra I needed to work on. I felt like I couldn't go there yet. So I did that at first, and then I began speaking it on video and to people. That was a big step for me. I remember one person made a comment that was horrible, like, this woman's just babbling nonsense or whatever. And it was okay. It was okay because I wanted to continue. So I moved through it, and it's almost like I had to experience that feedback to then be like, this is greater than that.
Right. What's
Available here for people, for all of us, is greater than that. So it was another thing of moving through that. So that was kind of a standalone thing at first with light language. And then I started noticing it coming through during Akashic readings, because sometimes during readings, a healing will come through. I tend to find that angelic energy comes through quite often during my readings. And so we would be doing a reading and I would feel this healing energy wanting to come through for the client. And it would involve some light language, and I would ask their permission to speak it to them so that they were aware of what was going on. And now it's evolved to where it's not just during a specific healing. It's almost like when I tune in more deeply to receive, light language might come through. And again, it's bypassing the client's egoic mind and it's going directly to wherever it needs to go. I mean, it has so many different, like right now, I'm just feeling it as it almost can spread throughout the entire body as a standalone healing modality that the client doesn't even realize is happening.
Wow.
And I think that really takes a lot of open-mindedness and trust. And I think that that's where we as a collective are moving toward. That's probably why we're seeing more light language and more people opening up to it, is because it is kind of opening people up to, I don't understand this, but I'm going to trust it anyway. Yeah. And that's a big step for a lot of people.
I have so many questions around this. So I didn't really know what it was. So I looked it up and I saw videos. And so what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that the light language, when you hear it, it could possibly activate in others like it did for you.
Atsue kiana wakai tsunu kuakasa mentina tsunu kuai etsini akaina kuakasa yaitini kisue tiamakasu. Ayanai tsi kuakaya lai tsutuwe tisimi kiana wakas. Ayana kukuakasi anawekia. Aya nukukuakasi nametina makai tsana wakini atsana wakia maya tsu kuekikia tsana wakua. Ayana su kuetsi miki aisunu kukueke ayana wikia tsinia mikiana tsana kukueke sia watsue kiana tsikiatsa tunokuakatsia.
One of my questions is, people can learn light language for themselves for healing, and they can also learn Akashic record reading for themselves. And I love that because we're all about empowering people. So I love modalities like Reiki is the same way. I think you're a Reiki master, yes? Yeah, so am I, and so is Diana. And so learning it is really for your self-healing. And then the other thing I was going to say when I was listening to you, I do see, it made me think of this, I do see a lot of people doing light language and doing Reiki and doing sound healing and all those modalities. And I just want to say for the listeners, it is egoic energy when we start to go down that road of competitiveness, criticizing, making ugly comments on other people's videos that are trying to share this beautiful language or trying to teach Reiki or doing sound healings. That's what we're here for, is to help others empower each other, really. So I just want to kind of quickly do an ego check on anyone who's listening. So if you're feeling a little critical, just check yourself, because that's why we're here on this podcast. The world needs more healers. The whole purpose, if from what I'm hearing from you with the light language, is so that there will be more light language. It's almost like it's activating something in us. Is that correct? Am I understanding that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's many layers to it. There's many purposes for it, but it absolutely activates. And as you said, that's what happened to me. It was an activation. It was a remembrance. It was like oh, this doesn't make sense to the logical mind, but I'm going to go with how I'm feeling anyway, and bypass what the mind is saying. So I think light language is actually kind of pivotal in where the collective is moving to be open to anything that has formerly been judged, because it can be such a concept that's kind of out there for a lot of people. But I really truly feel that it's such a powerful modality, and it has the potential, if it's more widely accepted, for humanity to really kind of evolve in leaps and bounds.
So, as far as the light language, when it came through with our session, I noticed that you said, okay, I'm going to go deeper on this one, and that it would come out. Was that specifically in response to a question, or was that just, oh, this is a good time to put some healing on her, whatever it was healing?
So it's never comes through as like my intention.
Mm-hmm.
It comes through just like we're in a reading, and all of a sudden it's like I feel light language coming in. So I a lot of times don't even know the purpose of why it's coming in that moment, like for your reading. Sometimes I do feel like it comes when we need to go deeper into something, and sometimes I also feel that it comes through, because I'm feeling this right now. So, like, for example, in your reading, when something does need to go directly to you, bypassing your mind. Like, we could have been talking about something, I can't remember exactly when it came up, and then something needs to come through in a deeper way for the client. And it's going in your body and in your field, wherever it needs to go to.
And this is just coming straight from source,
Yeah, or it can be from guides.
like from a galactic guide, or
Yes. Mm-hmm. Or it can be an aspect of the client that is in the galactic realm. You know, that starts to touch on parallel lives and all of that stuff. But I mean, we are multidimensional beings, so but it can come from various sources, and sometimes it's angelic.
That's really cool.
Beautiful. So I wanted to ask about the Kundalini energy work that you do, because I'm a yoga instructor. I'm curious how it's different from practicing Kundalini yoga.
So firstly, Kundalini yoga is amazing. I've had some pretty profound experiences during Kundalini yoga. So I recommend that for anybody. I don't think people choose to experience Kundalini yoga as much as they should, because I think it's something that has the capacity to really open people up. So I just want to say that, because I love Kundalini yoga. What I do with my Kundalini sessions, I've never had a session where there is a spontaneous awakening of Kundalini. I don't know why. I'm not going to pass judgment on whether that's good or bad, because everybody is meant to have the experience they're meant to have. I think that in general, I think with my energy, things come through in a more flowy pace. And maybe that's part of the people that are drawn to me. That's how they're meant to experience it. But the Kundalini sessions is working with people's Kundalini energy wherever they are on the path of that, whether there has been no awakening of the Kundalini energy at all, which is basically your Shakti energy that sits at the base and can be awakened and rise up the body. It's working with that energy during one of my sessions, wherever the energy is currently in the body, and whatever comes through, honestly, whether there's specific blockages that can help for that energy to flow more. I find a lot of the blockages are in the heart and more blockages in the throat. So I find in general, most people are able to have it rise up to the heart, and then it might take some form of healing, whatever they choose to have it rise further. So honestly, each session varies, and a lot of times during a session like that, there is so much that is shared, almost like an Akashic reading. I feel like everything that I kind of practice is via the Akasha. Like that's where things come from. So even during a Kundalini session, like it's like the Akasha is available. And so I also do share, like when I'm doing a session, the person is lying down receiving, and sometimes things will come through and I'll write them down, and then we'll talk about it at the end of the session about something that I was shown, or a healing, or what, guidance or whatever. So honestly, each session varies quite greatly.
So it's like clearing each chakra. So for those of you who don't know what Kundalini energy is, it's the energy that rises from the root chakra all the way up through the crown chakra. So is it like a Kundalini energy healing? Is that like a chakra clearing in a way?
Well, yes, it can be, but it's not, I don't intentionally go through every chakra. To be honest, my Kundalini sessions are like fully guided by spirit, by the client's higher self. So it could be just focusing on one specific chakra, or it could be focusing on somewhere else in the body, or it could be about delivering a specific message that's received during that session, that's delivered afterwards, that is like an aha moment, or something that the client can then work with healing further. Because sometimes it's the client. Like,
Yeah.
I know healers are here to assist, and we're all keys for each other, but we heal ourselves.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it really is like, I need to share this with this person, whether it be an inner child or a teenage inner child trauma, that the client needs to go into that space and address it. It's not like I'm not here to heal that. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yes.
it's the same with those sessions.
That's awesome.
So, what is is that in connection with womb healing, or is that two separate things, or how are they connected?
Well, I mean, they can be connected. I offer them as separate sessions because, I mean, the womb healings can incorporate Kundalini energy also. And the womb healings, again, vary so greatly. And the women who come for womb healings come for different purposes. Some are attempting to conceive. Others are having physical issues with the womb. Others are going through menopause. Others don't even really know why they're drawn, but they just felt like they were drawn to a womb healing. There's so much stored in the womb from this life, past lives, ancestral. There's just so much there, kind of womb sacral chakra energy, that it's almost like a doorway to profound healing in that area of a woman's body. So again, they might come to me for a specific purpose. And a lot of women, to be honest, come because they are attempting to conceive. And the reason I started offering womb healings was because I noticed this pattern of women who were coming for Akashic readings, and their purpose seemed to be surrounded around the womb. And I realized this is something that I was being called to offer separately for this group that were needing these specific healings. And so again, it's pretty much spirit-led. And sometimes things will show up that, like, they'll come for something that they think is specifically for a womb healing, and something else might show up that actually needs to be healed, and that was why they were there.
Yeah, that's such beautiful work. The sacral chakra, as you know, is the place of creativity as well, and where everything is birthed. And so my question is, with the womb healing, does a woman have to have a womb? You know, what about those women? Could you address that? Women who have had like hysterectomies?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an energetic womb, whether it's physically there or not. And to be honest, even men have an energetic womb space.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've actually thought about offering it for men.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we're in the place on humanity's travels where we could offer a womb healing to men, and they would get it. You know, it's like we're so open to all of it that they could understand all, and women too. I'm not just saying that men could understand it, but women, society in general, as you can have an energetic space there,
Sure.
you know? So, but yes, absolutely. Women without a physical womb and men.
It's beautiful.
So in our session, we touched upon aphantasia, those who cannot visualize, and how it's like a one, I looked it up, it's like a 1 to 3%. So it's a very small portion of the population who are unable to visualize. Would you care to explain what we had talked about? I want to hear it from your point of view. Those who feel mind sight challenged and feel like they're missing out on something.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to, because that was such a beautiful experience for me during our session. So first of all, I had never heard of that term before. And I love that, because going into it, when you asked the question, I had no background or any information about that anyway. And so you asked for it personally, and it was so beautiful, because what was received is that it's such a gift that you have. Anybody that has this 1 to 3% should not be seen as 1 to 3% that don't have something. It's the 1 to 3% that have this amazing gift. And what it did is it drew us and you into your heart. And I don't know if that would be with everybody with that. I would love to experience it more and see where it goes in their body. But it drew us into your heart, and how heart chakra focused that you are able to be, and how much is available to you. And that's where your source energy is. That's where I remember it brought through for you to do this exercise of, instead of like, if somebody had asked you to visualize a rose, you would have difficulty doing that. So it brought through, well, go to your heart space. And if somebody said, visualize a rose, what happens then? And then thinking about a person, go into your heart space, and what happens then? And I mean, you can speak from your side, but from my side, it felt like it drew you to where all of the juiciness of your soul is in this space, and it's all available to you. It's just not maybe how society says it's available to other people.
It definitely felt like a richer experience.
Yeah, and I do think in general, I just kind of want to touch on the clairs, because similar type of thing with clairvoyance. I think so many people, because as a culture we depend on sight so much, that so many people put so much validity into clairvoyance and being able to imagine and see things, but not everybody receives in that way, and that's totally fine. And I find that clairsentience, where you sense, are so powerful. And most people don't even realize that they're doing that, because they've been doing it since childhood. You know, especially people who are empaths. We feel things and we sense things, but we've been doing it for so long, we don't even know we're doing it.
Right.
And so then to put a label on what it is, when a lot of people are like, oh, but I should be seeing it. The sensing and the feeling are extremely powerful. And I personally just don't like seeing people take away their own empowerment by saying, well, I'm not clairvoyant. That doesn't matter. You're still receiving in the way that you are meant to receive.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was researching all of that, I saw comments like on Reddit or platforms like that, where it's like, I felt so betrayed. I thought everybody didn't see, and people were honestly hurt about it, that they were angry that they couldn't do what everybody else. But this really helped me realize that, okay, it's really okay. And it is, well, for me, a very rich experience. I wouldn't know the other side of it. I just need to lean into it a little bit more and develop it.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be great to get like a group of people together? I mean, a group of people and lean into that gift in different ways. Like, okay, we can't visually see things, but we can do all of this other stuff. You know, it just, people start to love themselves more. People become empowered. It's like
Right.
community can really help. And I would love to see that. You know, like I said, this was totally new for me, but I would love to see a community for people to come together. And how can we see us as the 1 to 3% that have this beautiful gift that maybe other people can't access in that way?
Yeah. And I was talking to it about, with my son, and he has that too. He just looks at me and goes, "Thanks, Mom. Appreciate that." It's like, it's not my fault. I didn't do it to you. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Tiffany.
Yes.
We ask all of our guests who come on the podcast, for those who are at the beginning of their awakening, which many of our listeners are, what would you want them to know at this time?
I'm just going to feel into this because I remember reading this question and I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and now I feel like something else is wanting to come through. So I just want to feel into what wants to come through for everybody that's listening. So what I'm feeling called to say is specific words of embrace your authenticity. So I feel like a lot of people coming into the spiritual path, there is this feeling of, I'm going to be different, or I'm different if I follow this more, or if I open myself up more to this. And the more authentic you can be to yourself, the more you are open to embracing things that are new for you, then literally your world opens up. It's like we can live in this space that we have. It's almost like if you imagine a shield around you, and we can live in this space where the shield is very close to us, and we just go about our daily lives and we live in that space. But if we embrace who we truly are without being fearful of judgment or of something that was told to us to be, that was wrong, then our field opens up. And when it opens up, there's like an infinite amount of experiences that we can have. And I think for people who are kind of new on the path, knowing that there are other people like us who have experienced exactly what they are also. I mean, we are all on the same path. We all awakened, we all started this spiritual journey. We all have our fears and worry about judgment. And I think also witnessing people who have done it anyway and are in a place to be able to share it without being fearful of being judged or fearful of doing something that maybe your parents or your family or society said is not true or shouldn't be done, but just really following where you feel guided and knowing that there's support out there also, like us and many, many thousands of other people who are on this path.
So beautiful. Thank you, Tiffany.
What is one truth from the other realms that you wish people on Earth understood?
Oh, 100%. I wish everybody understood that they are multidimensional beings. Yeah. And when I say that, and I think I've said it before during this, that we are not just this person in this body. Mm-hmm. We are so much greater than that. And we are so vast.
And we're on different dimensions.
Yes, different dimensions, different lives, timelines. Yeah, and that anything is possible. And I really feel like if people were walking around with that understanding and that knowing, the world would be a different place. Mm-hmm. From that one simple understanding.
The visual that I got when you were talking, Tiffany, was, do you remember that scene in Willy Wonka at the very end where that elevator goes shooting up and blasts out of that, blasts out of the top, the glass ceiling. That's the visual that just came to me when
Yeah.
you were saying that. It's,
Yeah.
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 That's
So-
what awakening feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So many people just think this is it. You wake up, go to work, pay taxes, and then you die.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful way to close this, and I'm sure that's going to make a lot of people stop and think. So thank you so much for
sharing
that.
Can you let everybody know how they can connect with you and your work? And we'll post your website on the bottom of this screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do have a website that's TiffanyAliceMalone.com. And I'm also on social media, mainly Instagram. I did go back on Facebook. I'm not a fan of the energy of Facebook. So I'm more on Instagram, which is at TiffanyAliceMalone. And also there's email, which is TiffanyAliceMalone@gmail.com. So, but yeah, I recommend the website because, obviously it has a lot of information and you can reach me through there.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you so
This has been
much.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me on, and thank you both for doing this and for the community and having people come together and letting people know that they do have support. I mean, I think it's so beautiful and such a generous energy for you, and introducing people. Like, I've watched some of your other podcasts, and introducing people to something they might not know about, in the spiritual community. So yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we've been so grateful for all of our guests have been so amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. We appreciate you coming, and thank you all for listening today and watching us. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe.
Yes, we appreciate you. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Tiffany. Namaste.